Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's finally come to this. Welcome back to Ladder Time. It is now Season 2. So good to be climbing back up the ladder once again. And today, I'm finally going to cover it. I'm finally going to cover Red Orange Midrange, Heaven and Hades, Heaven and Hell, whatever you want to call it. I meant to cover this deck during Season 1, but there were some other decks I wanted to get to first. I figured I'd get around to it eventually. Then the season ended, we took a break from the ladder, and now that we're back, it's impossible to tell what the metagame's going to look like, but I'm just going to go ahead and venture a guess that this deck is still going to be pretty darn good. So I figured this is a good week to cover it because I'm going to guess that this is still a safe bet to help you climb the ladder. I actually did kind of sort of cover this deck last week on my Casual Tuesday. I did a budget version of this deck. I will leave a link in the description below, so if you don't have all the mythic rares to build it just yet, that might be a good place to start, so you can check that out. This deck list is not mine. This is a deck that Covaris ran at the Winter Brawl last month, and I think this is still the pretty standard deck list. I don't think there's too many differences. Like with any deck, you'll see a few changes here and there. I know some decks like to run Panic Raider. This one doesn't. Sometimes you'll see an insurance broker or something like that too, but overall I think this is the best iteration of this deck. You don't really need any extra card draw. I think it's fine. I think you'll have plenty. I don't think I need to explain too much, especially if you played it on ladder before. I mean, the deck is named after two enchantments in particular. This is To Heaven and Back. When a non-angel dies on the space, it'll come back to her hand. Then we can recast it on the cheap. It'll have +1/+1 in Agile. And then we have also the Stairway to Hades. When a non-demon dies on this space, it'll come right back into play. It will now be a demon and will have Frenzy permanently. So those two enchantments give us a little bit longer term game plan. Those are kind of our gateway into a more mid-rangey type of game because even if stuff dies on it, they'll keep coming back. So it's basically a little bit of card advantage. And if your opponent's playing aggressive deck, and aggro decks typically like to deploy their hand as fast as possible, you can just keep trading off with their minions, and as they do so, you'll just kind of wear them down, and you'll eventually be able to take over and win the game. And against a control deck, what you'll typically do is try to hit your opponent as fast and hard as possible. This deck can get off to some explosive starts. You see we have 4 Derek Trapezes, 4 Iron Belly Wyvern, and 2 Wings of Abaddon. So we have a fair amount of rush minions in there as well. And against mid-range, I mean, it could go either way. If it's a more controlling mid-range, you're going to try him as fast as possible. Or more likely, against mid-range, you're going to probably try to do the same thing as an aggro deck. Just make trade after trade until you can get to your top end and kind of take over the game. But because we have the Heaven and Hades in here, we have a lot of minions that really play into that strategy. For example, the Rush minions. They can attack the turn they come into play. So you can take something like your Iron Belly Wyvern, crash into opponent's minion, and then To Heaven and Back will bring it back to your hand. You can either replay it, or if it's on the Hades, it'll die and then just immediately come back, and suddenly it'll have Frenzy and can attack right away. We also have cards like Magmatar. Good, solid, enters the battlefield effect. Can deal 3 damage to minions in the opposing 3 lanes. So it's a good removal spell. And then we also have cards like Sign of Pride, which puts a Pride of Place token in our hands. Also Parry the Gates, which gives us some sweet, sweet card draw. So a lot of minions that have good enter the battlefield effects. They're just good offensive minions. Basically, it's just red-orange good stuff, and in a deck like this, that works out just fine, especially when we can keep recycling minions. And at the top end of our deck, we have, of course, the 7-Ring Ritual. This is a card that, when you play it out, either your opponent has a response with it to deal with it, or they'll generally lose in the next turn or two. And for Orange's top end, we have the Armageddon Angel. Kind of a non-bow with the To Heaven and Back because it is an angel, so it won't activate To Heaven and Back's ability when it dies, but it does work with a Stairway, something to bear in mind. Just a good board wipe. That puts a nice big body on the battlefield. And we've got a fair deal removal in here. We have a couple of Extract Lifes. We have a couple Seal of Exiles in there as well as the Magmatar that can remove stuff, and also Gigantomachia if we have a bunch of bigger minions to cut down. Also, a couple of cards to take note of. We have 2 of the Shopworn Bull. This is another good mid-range card. It's 2/5. It's a good blocker. It can also draw us a card and put one back in our deck, so we can get rid of something we don't need and hopefully draw something we do. And also, we have the Oka Dodana. This is a very fitting card for this deck because some of the time you're going to be wanting to trade a lot with your opponent's minions, especially against aggro mid-range decks, and this just gets even more value out of your minions when doing so. So you can crash your Daring Trapezes in something, you can remove their minion, and you'll gain a life, your opponent will lose one, and the card draw from it is quite good as well. So that's the crux of the deck. I will leave a link in the description below. You can check out Kovaris' build for yourself. But let's just dive into a couple of games and we'll see how this deck does. Okay, our game 1 opponent here is going to be FC Slayer, playing Orange-Yellow Artifact Control. I'm going to burn the Extract Life right away. That's an easy burn on turn 1. Because it costs 3 red gems, it's going to take us a while to be able to cast it. And the fact that they burned a twin tells me they're playing a control deck. So I'm going to go for the aggressive plan. Going to play out an Eager Recruit. Alright, so the Yahui is going to be a bit of a problem. I almost inadvertently used my power-up on this Strigoi Pup, but it wouldn't have done anything because Yahui can only take 2 damage in combat anyway. So instead I just hit it with Strigoi Pup, then play Shadvar Beast. That's a Meso Libre. But fortunately we have the Daring Trapezes, so that can take out the Meso. I kind of want to try and keep the Shadvar alive. That's a good minion to put the To Heaven and Back on. That has a lot of utility to it. So it'd be a nice minion to be able to bring back. Alright, a Llama Ring, so they're going to power up their Yahui. That's going to get them a Forgeling. Alright, we drew Dark Passenger. Going to burn the Shopworn Bull. A little bit of a gamble. It'd be nice to have the card filtering, but we're going to get some card advantage here because we're going to be able to bounce minions back to our hand. As you saw, we just did with the Shadvar Beast. Alright, Serendipity Ifrit. That's much bigger than our Recruit. So Recruit's a good target to play Dark Passenger and then just run it into it. Alright, we drew another Iron Belly Wyvern, so we've got a good Rush Army in our hand. We'll take out the Forgeling. And now we have 2 Iron Belly Wyverns. If I draw another red card, I can play it out. Opponent plays Seal of Exile. There are a lot worse targets we could have had Seal of Exiled, so I'm actually okay with that there. Now they're going to be a step behind on mana. And we drew yet another Rush minion in our Daring Trapezes, so we've got a quick hand. I didn't really want to burn the Daring Trapezes, so I can wait another turn to play out the Iron Belly Wyvern. We've kind of got our opponent against the ropes. There's another Yahui. But fortunately, our Iron Belly Wyvern now has Agile, so that can get around it. They're going to use Home of Conscription to pump it up. And we drew Magmatar. So, like I said, our opponent's on the ropes. So I'm just going to play the Magmatar, take out the Forgeling. Even though it is going to heal their Helm of Conscription, I'm not too worried. Because we do have the Seal of Exile. But there's going to be no need for that. We'll just play Iron Belly Wyvern, pump it up with the power, and get in for lethal. So that was an excellent demonstration of To Heaven and Back, showing how valuable it can be. We traded with their minions, bounced ours back to their hand while theirs goes to the Boneyard, and then redeployed it. The fact that our Iron Belly then had Agile to get around their minions worked out great as well. So we got a lot of value out of our minions, got some good value out of our enchantment, and we were able to bring stuff back to the hand, redeploy it as needed. So overall, that was a good win against a control deck. So let's see what happens in game number 2. Now, our opponent in the second match is going to be HaltView497, also playing red-orange mid-range. Honestly, if you're going to play red-orange mid-range, you've got to get used to the mirror matches. There's a lot of this deck up on the ladder. It's one of the most common decks, so something you got to be prepared to do. Normally, mirror matches aren't that exciting, but with this deck, they can be very exciting because they usually like to go blow for blow. They'll grind with each other, so let's get this one started. And right away, our opponent kind of has a little bit of advantage here. Our hand is extremely slow. We don't have anything to do till turn 3. So at this point, I'm just hoping and praying that I get something to do. I burn an extract life. Next turn, I draw the other extract life, so I have to burn that 2 turns in a row. I'm going to get a Strigoi Pup or a Trapezist to save my life. And we get a Wings of Abaddon, so still we don't have any of our lower end. So I burn the 7-ring Ritual. But this is where Rush really comes in handy. Our opponent wasn't able to get any pressure on us. And normally when I played a minion, I'd have to wait a turn so our opponent could get a jump with their recruit. But because our Wyvern had Rush, we were able to attack into their opponent. So we're kind of an even footing. Alright, we have 2 Seal of Exile, so that one can be burned. I move out of the way with the Iron Belly Wyvern. I don't want to make that trade just yet. But I will trade my recruit for his recruit. Hopefully we can get in for 3 next turn. Okay, but the opponent plays Iron Belly Wyvern, so they make the trade there. And you can see there, Shopworn Bull is just filtering out cards. Alright, Armageddon Angel, so now I have something to work towards. So I burn the other Seal of Exile. Because at this point I'm planning to wipe the board if need be. Take the Daring Trapezist. Alright, there's an Eager Recruit. I kind of want my opponent to think maybe I don't have much here. I kind of want them to flood the board. Now they are mainly red-orange mid-range, but they are splashing for green. I believe they have a couple Born Agains. They have Shroud of the Pit and Wake the Bones or 2.
Do we have a mission?
So, just a light splash. Alright, now I'll trade with their wings. Now the plan is to use 7-ring Ritual. See if they have an answer for it. That's a Magnetar. Alright, and the good thing about 7-ring Ritual is you can see they have the Armageddon Angel in hand. The opponent has to sequence this carefully. If he doesn't attack our minions first, if he just plays out the Armageddon Angel, then the Angel will die immediately. It'll have 0 health because it gets -1 health for each of your opponent's minions. Instead, the opponent opts for Kushiel instead of the Armageddon Angel. And fortunately, we're going to be able to take care of that with the Gigantomachia, get in for a whole bunch of damage. We also have the Daring Trapezist to take out one of their minions, which will be the Shopworn Bull. So that means we're able to get in for 12 on the opponent, setting them way back. Okay, so they play out their Armageddon Angel and burn the Gigantomachia. But fortunately, we also have Armageddon Angel. I could have used a Scion of Pride, but my concern is like an Iron Belly Wyvern. They could infuse it. Like, it's just too easy to take out. And with the Armageddon Angel, I kind of expect the opponent to have an answer, like they did here. And Seal of Exile. I'm glad I did that because they also had another Wings of Abaddon in hand. And they're just full of Rush minions in their hand. They still have 2 Iron Belly Wyverns. They now drew a Daring Trapezist. So now the opponent is just coming at us fast and furious. Alright, we're going to get hit for 7, go down to 9. The opponent's at 8. Alright, there's a parry at the gates. I can put in front of the Iron Belly, make a trade. Alright, Magnetar could be useful. That could be a removal. But I play the Oko Dodana here. At least I'll get to draw a card with it as well. I filter out the Dark Passenger. Don't really need that removal spell right now. And then the opponent drops 2 Daring Trapezis on us. So the opponent's just showing the full speed and full fury of this deck. we're down to 3. But fortunately, we have the win because Daring Trapezes can take the Iron Belly Wyvern. And then we'll play our Iron Belly Wyvern, give it powered up, and hit the opponent for 6 and just get by the skin of his teeth. So you saw how incredibly fast the opponent recovered. He just hit every rush minion in the deck, came at us fast and hard. But fortunately, we were able to make those trades and swoop in for the victory because we got value out of things like Oak of Dodana, Shopworn Bull filters us out some cards, and we got to deploy the top end of our deck. The opponent, unfortunately, did have an answer for the 7-ring ritual, so it wasn't able to outright finish the opponent, but it got in for a ton of damage, and then we were both able to deploy Armageddon Angels, so we got to see in action, how this deck works in the mid game. We got to see both the top ends of the deck coming out, and no enchantments needed. There was no Heaven or Hades on either side, but just good values in its minions through and through, and we were lucky to survive that one. If we had been playing another deck, I'm sure we would just gotten run over by that veritable army of rush minions, so a little bit unfortunate for our opponent's part because he really did have a good attack in the late game there, but we were able to squeeze by. We were able to make the trades where we need to and get in for the victory. So that's going to be all for me today. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to be back with Ladder Time. I will be back again next week. We'll be back with a Casual Tuesday and a Ladder Time on Thursday for sure. Don't know if I'll have any other videos, but we'll have those 2 at the very least. So, like I said, that's going to be all for me. And you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all next time.